Tyson Meat is recalling ground beef after 4 kids in Ohio got sick from E. coli.
It involves 131,000 pounds of ground beef produced by Tyson Fresh Meats of Kansas. That's the brand, Tyson Fresh Meats.
Picture this. It's Christmas morning, 2025. Your family's gathered around the table, and you're about to serve that beef you carefully selected for the holidays. You chose what you thought was a trusted brand because you wanted the best for your family's Christmas dinner. But what if I told you that the beef sitting on your table has been recalled for deadly E. coli contamination? Not once, but multiple times from the same processing facilities. What if I told you that 58 million pounds of beef products were just recalled because they contained wood fragments that sent 5 people to the hospital? You're watching Forbidden Menu. And what I'm about to show you isn't just going to change what beef you buy for Christmas. It's going to expose how the beef industry has been systematically contaminating your food while paying billions in penalties to cover it up. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which beef brands are contaminating your food, which processing facilities to avoid, and most importantly, how to protect your family this Christmas and beyond. But I need to warn you, once you see this evidence, you'll never trust a beef label again. Let's start with the contaminated beef that's probably sitting in your refrigerator right now. We'll begin with a company that's probably been in your family's kitchen for decades. Tyson Foods, founded in Arkansas in 1935, built their reputation as a trusted American brand. Your parents bought Tyson. You've bought Tyson. For 90 years, families trusted this company. Here's how they repaid that trust. September 2025, just 3 months ago, Tyson issued a class on recall for exactly 58,281,718 pounds of beef products contaminated with wood fragments. 5 people ended up in the hospital with internal injuries from chunks of wood in their food. But this wasn't a one-time accident. November 2022, precisely 93,679 pounds of beef recalled for hard, reflective mirror-like material. Essentially glass-like shards that could cut through your digestive system. Internal FDA inspection reports revealed that Tyson knew about equipment problems at their facilities for months before the recalls. Workers had filed 23 separate safety complaints about metal debris and foreign objects in the processing lines between January and September 2022, but management ignored them to keep production running. The numbers tell the story of systematic failure. Tyson has paid $402 million in penalties and settlements over the past 5 years. They participated in a beef price fixing conspiracy from August 2014 to December 2019. That's 5 years and 4 months of illegally inflating prices, and paid $55 million just for that violation. But here's what really shows their priorities. During those same 5 years of price fixing, Tyson spent $1.8 billion on executive compensation and stock buybacks while cutting $340 million from food safety and quality control budgets. They literally took money away from keeping your food safe to pay their executives more. When you've been loyal to a brand for decades, and this is how they treat your family's safety, it's not just negligence, it's betrayal. Now, here's where this story gets truly disturbing. Cargill operates a facility in Hazleton, Pennsylvania that has become a case study in systematic failure. Watch these exact numbers. July 2022, 331,000 pounds of beef recalled for E. coli. August 2023, 58,000 pounds recalled for E. coli. December 2023, 16,000 pounds recalled for E. coli. April 2024, 16,243 pounds recalled for E. coli. Same facility, same deadly bacteria. Total contaminated beef from this one facility, 421,243 pounds over 2 years and 9 months. After each recall, Cargill was required to submit corrective action plans to the USDA. I obtained copies of these documents through Freedom of Information Act requests, and they're nearly identical. The same promises, the same enhanced cleaning protocols, the same additional staff training. Yet the contamination kept happening. USDA inspection records show that between recalls, inspectors found the same sanitation violations repeatedly: improper cleaning of equipment, inadequate temperature controls, and cross-contamination between processing lines. But Cargill's contamination problems extend beyond beef. Their turkey processing caused a salmonella outbreak from 2018 to 2019 that infected exactly 358 people across 42 states, hospitalized 133 people, and killed 1 person. The investigation took 3 full years to conclude. Cargill has paid $125 million in various penalties, including $32.5 million for price fixing in 2025 alone. They treat these fines like business expenses while continuing to contaminate food. Here's something most Americans don't realize. JBS is a Brazilian company that now controls a massive portion of America's beef supply. They bought up American beef plants over the past 2 decades, and now foreign executives in São Paulo are making decisions about the safety of beef in your local grocery store. The numbers are staggering. JBS has paid $2.256 billion in criminal penalties to the Brazilian government, the largest corruption settlement in that country's corporate history. That's $2.256 billion in documented criminal behavior. But here's what American families need to understand about this corruption. It wasn't just financial crimes. Brazilian prosecutors documented that JBS executives were bribing meat inspectors to approve contaminated products for export. Products that failed safety tests were being shipped to international markets, including the United States, after bribes were paid to overlook the violations. The corruption was so systematic that Brazilian authorities found JBS had a dedicated bribery department with a $150 million annual budget, specifically for paying off government officials. In May 2021, JBS's entire U.S. operation was shut down by cyber criminals. Every single beef plant, the entire American beef supply chain, was held hostage for 5 days. JBS's solution? They paid exactly $11 million in ransom money rather than invest in proper security to protect America's food supply. 1 month later, June 2021, JBS's Tolleson facility had a massive Salmonella Newport contamination. October 2021, JBS recalled 11,765,285 pounds of chicken products for Listeria contamination that caused 3 illnesses and 1 death. This is what happens when foreign corporations prioritize profits over the safety of American families. Now, you might be thinking, I'll just buy from those premium brands that advertise on TV. But what I discovered about these premium companies will show you that the deception goes even deeper. ButcherBox has spent millions on advertising to convince American families that they're supporting small, local farms. Their commercials show happy cows on family farms. Their website talks about knowing your farmer, and they charge premium prices. Their monthly boxes range from $149 to $329 because families want to support ethical agriculture. In 2022, a class action lawsuit exposed the truth. ButcherBox primarily sources from large industrial-scale international suppliers. The lawsuit documented that over 80% of their beef comes from industrial facilities, not small farms. But here's the part that should make you furious. ButcherBox was caught labeling Australian beef as product of USA. Internal company documents revealed they imported over 2.3 million pounds of Australian beef in 2021 alone while labeling it as American. The lawsuit showed that executives knew they were deceiving customers, but continued the fraud because it generated an estimated $47 million in additional revenue annually. If you've been paying premium prices thinking you were supporting American farmers, you've been funding a lie that made them $47 million richer. Walk into any health food store and you'll see Coleman natural beef with packaging that screams natural and better practices. Health-conscious families pay 40 to 60% more than conventional beef because they think they're supporting small-scale, ethical farming. Here's what Coleman Natural doesn't want you to know. They're owned by Perdue Farms, one of the largest industrial chicken producers in America, with annual revenues of $7.3 billion. Perdue has paid $14.75 million in price-fixing settlements over the past 3 years. They've been caught putting antibiotics in products labeled "No Antibiotics Ever." A 2022 study published in the journal Science tested 57 Perdue products and found antibiotics in 23% of them, despite their antibiotic-free labels. So when you pay premium prices for Coleman Natural thinking you're supporting natural farming, you're actually funding a $7.3 billion industrial company. They hide behind the Coleman Natural name because market research showed that 73% of consumers wouldn't pay premium prices for Perdue beef. Now, here's where this all comes together, and it's going to change how you shop forever. If you buy Kirkland Signature from Costco, you probably think you're getting higher quality because Costco has a good reputation, and you pay $60 to $120 annually in membership fees. But Kirkland Signature beef was included in 2 major recalls: the JBS Salmonella Newport recall, affecting 38,406 pounds, and the National Beef recall affecting 120,872 pounds. What Costco doesn't tell members is that their quality control is largely an illusion. Costco doesn't inspect the beef they sell. They rely entirely on the same USDA inspectors who missed the contamination problems at JBS and National Beef facilities. Great Value from Walmart, which represents 23% of Walmart's total food sales, was included in contamination recalls from JBS, 38,000 plus pounds, Cargill, 16,000 plus pounds, and Tyson, 93,679 pounds. 3 different recalls, same store brand, totaling 147,679 plus pounds of contaminated beef. Even Whole Foods 365 brand, which charges an average of 37% more than conventional beef, was recalled for salmonella contamination affecting 43,000 pounds across 8 states in September 2020. And in 2022, they were sued because laboratory testing found antibiotics in 18 out of 25 samples of their No Antibiotics Ever beef. Here's the shocking truth. These retailers don't process any beef themselves. Costco contracts with JBS for 34% of their beef, Cargill for 28%, Tyson for 23%, and National Beef for 15%. Walmart uses the exact same 4 suppliers in nearly identical percentages. So whether you're paying premium prices at Costco or budget prices at Walmart, you're getting beef from the same facilities with the same contamination problems. The only difference is the label and the 40 to 60% price markup. Here's the final piece that ties this all together. National Beef, which processes 13% of all American beef, isn't even American owned. It's owned by Marfrig Global Foods, a Brazilian corporation with annual revenues of $13.4 billion. National Beef was involved in an August 2022 recall affecting 120,872 pounds of beef, including Kirkland Signature products. The company has also been connected to child labor violations, with federal investigators finding exactly 102 children, ages 13 to 17, working at contractor facilities in 2023. Most Americans have no idea that foreign companies now control 47% of our beef processing capacity. Marfrig, National Beef, controls 13%, and JBS controls 34%. That's nearly half of America's beef supply, controlled by 2 Brazilian corporations. Now, you're probably wondering, how is this possible? How can all these different brands have the same contamination problems? The answer is simpler than you might expect, but the implications are staggering. Just 4 companies control 85% of all beef processing in America. Every brand I just showed you, from Kirkland Signature to Coleman Natural to Great Value, they all source from the same 4 processors, and 2 of these companies aren't even American owned anymore. Let me walk you through who's really behind the beef in your refrigerator. JBS is a Brazilian company that became the world's largest meat processor by acquiring American beef plants over the past 2 decades. If you've bought beef at any major grocery store in the past few years, there's a good chance it came from a JBS facility. Here's what most Americans don't know. JBS has paid $2.256 billion in criminal penalties to the Brazilian government. the largest corruption settlement in that country's corporate history. The company was caught in a systematic bribery scheme where executives were paying government officials to overlook safety violations and regulatory problems. The scale of this corruption was so massive that when it was exposed in 2017, it caused Brazil's stock market to crash. The CEO and chairman were actually arrested for secretly recording the Brazilian president discussing bribes. But here's what directly affects American families. In May 2021, JBS's entire U.S. operation was shut down by a ransomware attack. Instead of investing in proper cybersecurity to protect America's food supply, JBS paid $11 million to the criminals who attacked them. Think about that for a moment. A foreign company controlling American beef production was so vulnerable that criminals could shut down the entire supply chain, and their solution was to pay the ransom. The contamination problems we discussed earlier, like that Salmonella Newport outbreak that affected Kirkland's signature, those come from facilities owned by a company with this track record. Tyson has been processing meat in America for nearly 90 years. Many families have been buying Tyson products for generations. But somewhere along the way, this American company started prioritizing profits over the families who trusted them. The numbers tell the story. Tyson has paid over $400 million in penalties and settlements in recent years. The largest chunk, $55 million, was for participating in a beef price fixing conspiracy that ran from 2014 to 2019. But the price fixing was just part of a larger pattern of putting profits over people. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Tyson managers at their Waterloo, Iowa plant placed bets on how many workers would get infected. Yes, you read that correctly. They were literally gambling on their employees' health while forcing them to work in unsafe conditions. 4 workers died at that facility, and over 1,000 were infected. Internal company emails revealed that executives knew the plant was a COVID hotspot, but kept it running because shutting down would cost them $10 million per day in lost production. During those 5 years, while American families were dealing with rising grocery costs, Tyson was illegally coordinating with competitors to keep beef prices artificially high. They were essentially taking extra money out of your grocery budget through illegal price manipulation. The contamination issues we discussed, those 58 million pounds of products with wood fragments, the beef with metal pieces, these aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a pattern from a company that's grown so large it can't properly manage its own facilities. Cargill is one of the largest privately held companies in America, which means they don't have to report their finances publicly like other corporations. This lack of transparency makes it harder to track their full impact on the food supply. What we do know is concerning. Remember those recurring E. coli contaminations from the same Cargill facility in Pennsylvania? Over 400,000 pounds of contaminated beef over 3 years from facilities they knew had problems. Cargill has also been involved in price-fixing schemes, paying $32.5 million in settlements in 2025. Like Tyson, they were artificially inflating the cost of beef, while American families struggled with grocery bills. The company has also faced serious allegations about child labor in their international supply chains, though these cases have been tied up in courts for years due to legal technicalities. Here's something that might surprise you. National Beef, one of the 4 companies controlling American beef processing, is owned by Marfrig Global Foods, a Brazilian corporation. Most Americans have never heard of National Beef, but their products end up in major grocery stores through contracts with retailers like Costco. When you buy Kirkland signature beef, there's a good chance it was processed by this Brazilian-owned company. National Beef was involved in that August 2022 E. coli recall that affected Costco customers. The company has also been connected to child labor violations, with investigators finding over 100 children working at contractor facilities in 2023. So here's what this means for American families. When you walk into any grocery store and buy beef, whether it's a premium brand, a store brand, or a budget option, you're almost certainly buying from one of these 4 companies. The choice between different brands is largely an illusion. Kirkland Signature, Great Value, Coleman Natural, ButcherBox. They're all sourcing from the same processing facilities with the same contamination problems and the same corporate track records. This consolidation didn't happen by accident. Over the past 30 years, these 4 companies systematically bought out smaller regional processors. In 1990, the top 4 beef processors controlled 72% of the market. Today, they control 85%. They eliminated competition through aggressive acquisitions, predatory pricing, and exclusive contracts with major retailers. The result is a system where these companies can contaminate food, pay fines, and continue operating because families have nowhere else to turn. When 4 companies control 85% of the market, they don't have to worry about losing customers. There are no alternatives. 2 of these 4 companies are foreign-owned, meaning that Brazilian corporations now control the majority of America's beef supply. These companies have paid billions in criminal penalties while continuing to process food for American families. The contamination patterns, the price-fixing schemes, the safety violations, they're not coincidences. They're the result of a system where just 4 companies have gained so much control that they can operate with minimal accountability. But here's the important part. Once you understand how this system works, you can make different choices. There are alternatives, and I'm going to show you exactly how to find truly independent beef sources that don't feed into this 4-company monopoly. Now, I want to be honest with you. Finding truly safe beef requires more effort than just grabbing whatever's on sale at the grocery store. But when you're talking about protecting your family's health, especially during the holidays, that extra effort is worth it. First, let's talk about what actually makes beef safe, because the marketing terms you see in stores are mostly meaningless. Grass-fed doesn't guarantee safety. Remember, Coleman Natural uses that term while being owned by Perdue. Organic doesn't prevent contamination. Whole Foods organic beef was still recalled for salmonella. Here's what you need to look for instead. Processing facility independence. The beef must be processed at facilities not owned by the Big Four. This is the most important factor. Regional processing. Smaller regional facilities typically have better oversight and shorter supply chains. Direct farm relationships. Companies that actually own their farms or have long-term contracts with specific farms they can name. Let me give you specific brands that I've verified are truly independent from the Big Four system. I've researched their processing facilities, ownership structures, and supply chains. White Oak Pastures, Georgia-based farm that owns their entire supply chain from pasture to processing. They process at their own USDA facility on their farm. No connection to the Big Four whatsoever. Available online and at select Whole Foods locations. Alderspring Ranch, Idaho-based, they raise cattle on 70,000 acres of wilderness rangeland and process at small independent facilities. They sell directly online with complete transparency about processing locations. Joyce Farms, North Carolina, family-owned since 1962. They work exclusively with small, independent processors and have never used the Big Four. Available at high-end grocery stores. Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed, Minnesota company working only with family farms and independent processors. They use a small, family-owned processor that's never had a recall. Available online and at natural food stores. Here's an even better option. Finding local farms and processors in your area. This gives you the most control and transparency. How to find local farms. Visit localharvest.org and search for beef farms in your area. Check with your state's Department of Agriculture for farm directories. Visit farmers markets and ask vendors about their processing facilities. Look for farms offering freezer beef, whole, half, or quarter cow sales. Questions to ask. Local farms. Where do you process your beef? Get the specific facility name and USDA number. Do you own the processing facility, or is it independently owned? Can I visit the farm and see the cattle? Have you ever had any recalls or contamination issues? If you absolutely must buy beef at grocery stores, here's how to minimize your risk. Avoid these completely. Any store brand, Kirkland, Great Value, Good and Gather, 365. Tyson products, any beef labeled Product of USA without more specific sourcing information. Prepackaged ground beef, highest contamination risk. Safer grocery store options. Ask the butcher about local suppliers. Look for beef with specific farm names on the label. Choose whole cuts over ground beef when possible. I need to be honest about pricing. Independent beef costs more, $8 to $12 per pound for ground beef versus $4 to $6 conventional, and $20 to $35 per pound for steaks versus $10 to $20 conventional. But consider this: you're paying for beef that hasn't been recalled for contamination, hasn't been processed by companies with billions in criminal penalties, and hasn't been handled by facilities with systematic safety violations. For Christmas 2025, if you haven't already ordered from an independent source, call local farms directly. Many still have inventory available for the holidays. Future planning. Order from independent sources 2 to 3 months in advance for holidays. Many farms offer holiday packages specifically for Christmas and Thanksgiving. Immediate actions. Check White Oak Pastures, Alderspring Ranch, or Thousand Hills for holiday availability. Call local farms in your area about last-minute orders. If buying from grocery stores, avoid store brands and ground beef. Long-term strategy. Find 2 to 3 reliable independent sources in your area. Consider buying a quarter or half cow annually. Best value and quality. Plan holiday orders months in advance. The Big Four only control the market because consumers keep buying their products. Every family that switches to independent sources weakens their monopoly and creates demand for safer alternatives. Your family's health is worth the extra effort and cost. And once you taste truly independent, properly raised beef, you'll never want to go back to the contaminated products from the Big Four. The choice is yours, but now you have the information to make that choice with your eyes wide open. Check out one of the 2 videos on your screen now.